Hi everybody, and welcome back to our PI webinar series. Delighted to have so many of you with us. My name is Amy Baker from the PI, and today we're going to be talking about virtual recruitment. Never been a more timely time to talk about this. What is it and how can it help? So I'm delighted to be joined today by Sebastian Fernandes, CEO at FPP Edumedia. Hi Sebastian.
Hi Amy.
Bossi. She's International Marketing and Recruitment Lead at Università Cattolica del Sacro, Cuore.
Thank you, Amy. Hi.
We have Omid Feyli here. Welcome, Head of Department for Marketing and Recruitment at Tilburg University in the Netherlands.
Hello.
And we also have Adam Sarac joining us. He's Program Manager at Study in Sweden, and he'll be joining us momentarily while we switch around the panel. So, first of all, I'm going to come to you, Sebastian. If you could just tell us a little bit of an introduction about who you are, and then we'll introduce everyone and we'll crack on. We are going to have a little demo about virtual recruitment. Some of you will have been to virtual fairs, workshops, some of you won't. So this should be a great learning hour for all of us. Feel free to ask as many questions as you'd like. So we have a submit a question function at the bottom. Please do ask those questions. You can vote for other people's questions too. And we'll certainly get to those as soon as we can. And then we also have a poll. So we'd love to hear from you on the poll. Please do answer. And we'll come back to that later on during this next hour. Okay, thanks. And over to you, Sebastian.
Okay, thank you very much, Amy. I will start by sharing my screen, and then we will be back with all the presenters. But basically, I am Sebastian. I'm the CEO of FPP, and we have a lot of experience with virtual recruitment, and that's why we're joined here by Ilaria from Università Cattolica, Omid from Tilburg University, and also with Adam, as you said, from Study in Sweden, that also have a lot of experience with virtual recruitment. And that's what we want to share in this webinar today, sharing the experience and also some tips on what is virtual recruitment, what you need to consider when you consider your virtual recruitment options, and so on. So, great. Ilaria, would you like to introduce yourself?
And can I just check, is that better? Everyone was asking me to turn up my volume. Is that better?
A little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So thank you, Sebastian, and thank you very much, Amy and the PI, for the opportunity of being here. My name is Ilaria Bossi, and I am International Recruitment Manager at Università Cattolica. I will talk to you a little bit more about the university later on during the hour, so I'll give it to Omid, I guess, for presentation.
Thank you, Ilaria. My name is Omid Feyli, Head of Department of Marketing and Recruitment within Tilburg University. And of course, I'm very thankful that I have the opportunity to share at least my experiences with you guys.
Great. I'm just going to bring Adam in to welcome Adam, and then we're going to go straight to a little demo. Still quiet, Amy. Okay. Let's just bring Adam in, and I'll try and sort this out while we're screen sharing. Adam, over to you.
Yes, hello guys. So yeah, my name is Adam Sarac. Nice to be here today. I work for Study in Sweden at the Swedish Institute. So that's a national agency promoting Sweden and Swedish higher education.
Great, thank you. All right, we'll come back to you later, Adam. Now we're going to go to Sebastian.
Perfect.
Sebastian, would you like to start us with your demo?
Yeah, I'll start by sharing my screen and our slides and the demo. So can you see my screen, Amy?
Yep, that's perfect.
Perfect. So I'll start with a short introduction on who we are. I know some of the audience here know us, but we were basically born in '97 with a student website that was doing the same thing that we do today. That is basically connecting international students with the right institution. So we're not an agency, we're just a company facilitating that connection. And we have always been using technology, and it's in our backbone. And that is, of course, very important today in a virtual environment where you need technology as the backstand of everything you do. We are also a student fair organizer. We organize hundreds of student fairs throughout the year in different regions. And of course, right now with COVID, those events are not operating, but I'm sure we'll be back soon by doing that. But in this meantime, and always, we have always considered that virtual, as I said, as part of the technology importance is very important in any virtual recruitment. So first, I mean, today here we'll be speaking about the interactive recruitment options that we basically have. Of course, there's a lot of not interactive options like social media and email blasts, etc. Options where you can reach virtually your audience, but it will not mean an interaction. And within those options that are interactive, I've seen that lately there's a lot of confusion between the different options and how do they work, because many institutions have decided, okay, let's go online. But within going online, sometimes using the right terminology or identifying the options better will give you more tools in order to know exactly what you're doing. So here, it's very important. We recently were hosting a virtual fair, and one of the universities said, hey, I already joined the virtual fair. It was a 40-minute presentation and 20 minutes Q&A. Well, that was a webinar. That was not a virtual fair. So in that sense, there's a lot of confusion. And then I've also seen that there's some virtual fairs that they're actually a Zoom call. So what we believe that a virtual fair is of course one-to-one interaction, the possibility of sharing materials, and for students, for visitors, there's a variety of options within the same environment. A webinar, of course, you can reach a wide audience with the same content. A Zoom call, it complicates for students because they need to download an app, and in many cases you cannot share materials there, etc. And then one option that actually is, for example, Omid from Tilburg University, they have been doing this, is doing your own virtual event, your own open house, as many institutions normally do in physical, doing that, of course, virtually. Our experience with virtual fairs basically spans for 8 years. We started with this in 2012, and the main reason for us to do this was not to replace the physical events, was to complement, and I will go into that in a minute. So our experience started with renting a platform. That didn't work for us. We did that during 3 years. And then in 2015, we decided to build our own platform. As I said, we're also a big part of technology in our company. We have a big team, a big IT team with us. And that's why we developed during 2 years. It took, of course, a lot of time to develop that. But we built a virtual fair platform with 14 years experience organizing physical events. So we built it replicating the real in-person events. And then since 2017 to today, we have been hosting several virtual fairs along this time with our own platform. Why we believe virtual events, and here I refer to webinars and to virtual fairs and to open houses, it's definitely a complement to any strategy. And I put it very, very big there, and the future is hybrid. The world has proved itself in the last 2-3 months that what we do, what you do, it's our job is basically connecting people. And connecting people can be achieved in a virtual environment to a very high degree rather than in person. There's some things in this world that, of course, will never be possible in a virtual environment. I cannot go to Disneyland and ride a roller coaster and feel the chills of a roller coaster virtually. That won't happen. But what you do, that is basically connect people with people, can be done online, and the whole world has been doing it in the past 2-3 months. So that is a small disadvantage. We're humans, and that's why I say the future is hybrid. We are humans, we have bodies, we like to touch, we like to hug, and that won't change. And we like to travel, and we like to see, and that will stay. But the virtual side of recruitment will prevail in the near future because of all the advantages it has. One of them is, of course, it democratizes the access to information to students. When you reach a whole country, a whole region, a whole continent. For example, I know if you go, for example, to Japan to recruit, and you go just to Tokyo, we will be reaching 30% of the whole country population. The other 70% is left out. In a virtual event, you can target the whole country, and also you have possibility of testing new markets. For example, recently we had a fair that had students from Bolivia, and probably you never travel to Bolivia or to Uruguay or to small countries, I don't know, like Cambodia and so on. So the possibility of testing new markets without moving, without traveling, and without the costs of all of that, without the hotels, the per diems, the shipping of brochures, the air tickets, etc., makes the virtual events much more alike. And something that we were speaking with Amy just now recently, the target audience that we all have now is the Generation Z, the kids that were basically born since the 2000 on, and basically have now a much wider interaction. And as Omid will speak a little bit later, with virtual, you have a lot of data that is immediately available, and you can immediately follow up. So all of these reasons is what makes, in my opinion, the future to be hybrid in terms of recruitment. And that's why we have started 8 years ago introducing virtual as a complement to any recruitment strategy. And when you compare virtual and in-person events, you always have the same 3 key points. You need an exhibitor, you need a university, you need a presenter, you need students, and you need a venue for that to happen. If you're hosting a fair, for example, and the venue is not good, is poorly located, or it complicates for students to get to the venue, that will be the same replication in a virtual event. And the successes and failures of in-person and virtual events in a way are the same. Probably you have all been to a presentation or a webinar that was or a seminar that the students were not good in person. Well, the same thing is if it happens in a virtual environment. If the students are not good, the event will not be good. And probably you all went to an event in person where the venue was not good. Maybe the location was poor and it was difficult to access. And that is the same in a virtual event. If you choose a platform, if you choose a venue that it's complicated for students to log in, to access, they need to download applications, they need to register many times, that will complicate for students to get in there. So basically the successes and failures for in-person and virtual events are in a way the same, because what we felt when we built our platform for virtual events is replicating the same thing from one point to the other. So replicating what you see there in the picture from a virtual, from a physical event where you have all the booths into a virtual environment, and replicating the one-to-one interaction with real one-to-one interaction via audio and video calls. And we feel that audio video calls is a must in our sector in the education, because students are not making light decisions when they choose their university overseas. They are making a big decision. It will impact their career, it will impact their life, it will have a big impact. And that's why it's important for them to have that face-to-face interaction. So that's why we replicated that in a virtual environment. Before going with the demo, I will just go through a few tips when you choose a virtual recruitment option in any point. Is number one, of course, the experience of the organizer, because there's some small things that, as anything we do in life, there's a learning curve. For example, something very menial, we have discovered in our 8-year experience that weekends don't work for virtual events. On weekends, people don't want to stay home. People want to leave home. They have been already, especially now during the lockdown, they have been from Monday to Friday in front of a computer, either going to school or parents working. When it comes Saturday, they want to leave their home and go to the park or do whatever they want to do. A physical event, that's great on a Saturday. A virtual event, no, for us, it didn't work. And we survey students, we tested, and that accounts into the experience. And then when you go from point A to B, you always will have many options. You will have a plane, you'll have a bus, you can go via a bicycle. So it's the same in a virtual environment. And it's very important for you to inquire and ask, how is the format of the virtual event? So is it web-based? Do students need to download an application? That will certainly complicate things. Does it really replicate an in-person event with one-to-one interaction or not? How many representatives can you have in that virtual event? because of course, the more representatives, the more opportunities you have to engage with students. How is the interaction? Is it one-to-one? Is it a group chat? Is it only text? Is it audio video calls? Are conversations private? And here, you know, usually students, they all have their own story, their own thing. So they usually want to have that one-to-one interaction. Maybe they don't feel okay sharing the whole information in a group conversation. And the same thing, can you also share materials like in a real event? Can you share brochures? Can you share information with them? And apart from the system, the second point you should investigate is, of course, as well, how it's promoted to students and how the students are trained. What is the online expertise of the organizer? Because that's also a key factor. If you're too used to promoting an event in person, the channels where to promote an event that people mandatorily need to register online in a way are different. For language programs, something that is very important, is the platform multilingual? You cannot be pretending to promote an English language program in a platform that is only in English. That will be a limiting factor for the students. And also, and Omid will speak more about this, what do you get after the event? Do you get just all the leads? Do you get reports? Do you know how they have interacted with your material? What do you get actually from the event? So going straight to the demo, before this, just outlining that when we built the platform, we wanted to keep it simple, easy, and robust. And the platform that you will be seeing here is focused into our student-facing brand, that is the student world. This FPP is our brand for universities and for institutions, but for students, we're always the student world. So this is where students start their journey. It's where they can interact with all the exhibitors that they are at the event. They can know who is joining, they can read more information, and of course, they can register. And when I said, how are students trained, is it, do you actually get information to the students on how the event will be? Do the organizers explain to students beforehand what they need to do? We have developed this beautiful video to explain them what they can do and what they can achieve at any virtual event. So that trains the student to be better prepared. So doing a very short demo, this is what students see when after they register in the website. This is what students see when they join our virtual events in our virtual platform. So they can have pavilions here where they can interact with the different exhibitors that they are in the different pavilions. They have the full list of exhibitors here as well. And also the platform is fully multilingual. So let's say, for example, I am a Japanese student. By putting the platform in Japanese, I can have everything automatically translated to Japanese. Let's put it back to English. So just for the sake of being able to do this. And the main point is in the pavilions, I can visit different exhibitors. And for today, we have chosen Study in Sweden, that they joined this event. So as soon as I go into their booth, I can learn, oh, I see I have someone inviting me for a conversation. I will hide this for a moment because first I will investigate who is this exhibitor. I can tag it as favorite. I can check their photos and read more information and see their photos. I can go and see their videos that are played directly from YouTube and play the videos straight from here. I can check brochures that will open in a different page. And as in a physical event, I can favorite this to get that done. But again, the most important part of any event is the interaction. So I will reply hi to this person. And what we do in our platform is that the student can only start the conversation via text, but the exhibitor can invite me for an audio video call. And there on the other side, we have Jack, our marketing manager. Thank you, Jack. So you can have an audio video conversation with the student right from here. No apps to install, no downloads. It's fully web-based. All you need to do is, as we are doing here in Crowcast, is allowing the camera and the microphone to be shared. So this is it for me, Amy. I will now just close this conversation. We can then give you more information. Something very important for the student replicating a physical event, they can accumulate information during the event. They can tag as favorite brochures, videos, etc., and they can review this information later on, so they can interact with all the exhibitors they have been in touch during the event. So that's it for me. Yeah, let's go with Ilaria's slides.
Thank you, Sebastian.
Welcome.
I really found it impressive, to be honest. I've participated before, but I think it's always nice to get sometimes a little bit of a refresh. As I said before, I'm going to introduce my institution briefly because I think it's fundamental to understand who we are and what we do in order to understand what are the challenges we're actually going to face as everybody else from now on. So Università Cattolica is based in Italy. As you see, I put on top of my slide something very optimistic or a very complex reality. We are because we are private. In Italy, the major landscape is occupied actually by public institutions. We're Catholic, which may not come as a surprise to the Italian audience, but I assure you that when we go promoting in Asia, in China, this is an element that is challenging. We're very traditional. And then I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about that. We are spread across 4 campuses. We have 12 different schools, which means that our product is really diverse. And of course, we need to select our audience. We need to target and segment the students in a very accurate way. We're a very big institution. We're actually the largest private in Europe with 30,000 students. Here you see the ratio of international is about 20%, but this includes both degree seeking as well as exchange and study abroad students. We're very multicultural, I would say. There's more than 150 nationality. 2 elements are actually key and challenging to our promotion. There is an increasing number of programs taught in English. Staff, though, remains, at least so far, more or less the same. And they are also increasing in the diversity. So we have from medicine to agriculture, economic and business, which of course calls for a different audience every time. And then the domestic reputation, the national reputation, which is extremely good and consolidated within Italy, changes a lot when you, of course, go abroad. And this takes me to my next slide. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about our recruitment approach, at least how it was before COVID-19. So the strategy has been built for over 9 years now. The office was initiated by my former manager, Michelangelo Ballicco. Beginning, there were just 2. So they started recruiting in the backyard, basically, of Italy, Eastern Europe. But soon enough, for the diversity of the product, they understood they had to have a global outreach. So nowadays, we're still present and we still promote actively in the Americas, in Europe, in China, in India, and in the major markets where I guess most of you would go to. We decided, being Italian, as Sebas was saying before, we're human. We like to have contact. So we are very strong and very successful on the offline presence. And we understood that we had to adopt, of course, an omni-channel approach. So we have local reps with which we work very closely. We have trusted providers. We do high school tours, fairs, seminars, as well webinars, and of course, conferences of the industry. We started already with some online events, but I have to say they were not integrated part of our recruitment strategy from the very beginning. As I was saying, we were very strong and we are very strong offline in the human relation and contact. Nowadays, until March 2020, we were a team of 5. But within this, we organized regionally. There was no dedicated digital marketing specialist. And this is also linked to the fact that Cattolica doesn't really have a very commercial approach. If you say these 3 words, you're going to make somebody very angry at our institution. Selling, product, customer. We don't sell a product to no customer. Of course, being a recruiter, that's what we actually do. But what is our main target? Basically, create interest in the university, which converts to application, and from this huge funnel going down then to enrolled, which for us, so you get an idea of the size, is around 500 students growing through the years at the increase of programs. And this will take me to actually now and the planning of the future. So, Sebas, next slide. Thank you so much. What happened in March 2020? 2 events actually came to the office. First of all, we faced a reduced team because our former manager left for a great career opportunity. So we were facing reorganization within the team. at the moment that COVID-19 impacted. You can imagine how stressful that was for us. We adapted. I would like to say we survived for spring 2020. So we had to plan all our events that had been scheduled in presence to become virtual, to become somehow online. And as you can imagine, being strongly offline, that posed a challenge. Luckily, we did not face any drastic budget cuts. I understand that possibly for the industry that was absolutely very lucky. Still, we decided to be very careful in selecting our providers and the opportunities that I imagine, knocked at our door constantly. That's because, of course, we have to ensure quality in the whole procedure. So we survived spring. Luckily as well, our numbers for September, knocking on wood, did not drop. Now we're posed with the challenge of what are we going to do for this fall 2020? How are we thinking our strategy? And how are we going also beyond the fall 2020 issue? As you can imagine, most of our offline events will be transitioned online. We'll continue doing webinars, but we will expand the range and the number of webinars we do. We will do virtual fairs, virtual high school tours. We're thinking about changing the kind of interaction with our students. So with virtual workshops dedicated to specific topics. Of course, we'll still go to networking events, and there are different providers that actually allow us, like the Pi, to get connected anytime, anywhere. And about the advantages, we were not surprised because they might sound trivial to you, but for such a small team as ours, has a global outreach, time-saving and cost-effective, was absolutely fundamental. But what really surprised us was the enhanced reach. I think Sebastian already mentioned we were bound to main first-tier cities in most countries. Now we can actually connect to everyone within a country and even explore new markets, which is incredibly important. Sebastian mentioned that already. We really tap to the source of where they are. I mean, students are on their mobile phone, and that's where we're going to meet them. Already said, it is a very data-driven approach. When you want to be efficient and when you need to be efficient, because that's what your management asks you, being able to collect data and compare it, it's fundamental. So our main challenge as of now is preserve the identity of a very traditional institution while innovating in order to survive and, of course, evolve through this innovation. My desiderata would be to have an in-house digital expert, because that would allow us to select the events better and to analyze the events data better. But if we cannot have that, I think that relying on trusted providers proved to be extremely fundamental for us in order not to waste time and resources. If I have to say, what does the future look like for us? I would totally agree and say hybrid. So we will more and more integrate the online with the offline, not just short term, but mid and long term. And that was it from my side. Great. And thank you.
So I'm just going to ask you a quick question, which has come up, Sebastian, on the chat while we say goodbye to Ilaria briefly and bring Adam in. So let me just move to that slide. Sorry for that question. The question is, during in-person events, can you engage people that walk by your booth? So how can you reach those who don't specifically visit your booth? I think let's answer that now. Before we go on.
Yeah, the way we consider that in our virtual platform at least is allowing the student to search in detail. There's different filters on the exhibitors tab. There's different filters to search by program, to search by area. For example, if I'm looking for an architecture course or an engineering or chemistry or whatever. And so there's a very powerful search tool within that, and also a search tool by country. So let's say, for example, I select a country, Sweden, and it will show me just the options that are in Sweden, because all students, they will usually have a specific interest. So when they come to a fair, as in an in-person fair, they usually take the catalog or they take the map of exhibitors, etc. They will do the same in a virtual event where they will search the right exhibitors for them in a virtual event.
Okay, thank you. I hope you can hear me better. Apparently people can't hear me, so I'm speaking as loud as I can. Good. So the smiley face. Good. All right. So I think we're going to move on now to Adam's slides. Over to you, Adam.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you, guys. I hope you can hear me well. So I'm Adam, and yeah, I work for Study in Sweden. We're part of a public agency, the Swedish Institute, promoting Sweden and Swedish higher education. And so we have the official resource, the website, studyinsweden.se. And we are a very small Stockholm-based team. We don't have any offices abroad. But we do have many collaborators at Swedish embassies and consulates, and of course at Swedish universities. But we do represent all Swedish universities and try to promote them globally. And so on to the next slide. Yeah, sorry, what's that?
Yeah, this one is the slide.
Yes, exactly. Thanks. So we have worked with virtual recruitment for quite a while. I think we worked for maybe, well, at least 6 years. And I'm just going to talk a little bit more broadly about virtual recruitment. We work with webinars. So we've done webinars in YouTube Live, Facebook Live, and more recently in Zoom, with usually slightly more like targeted message. And we also do virtual fairs. We've been doing them for quite a while as well. We work with third-party providers, both commercial, like FPP, where we've done many of their fairs, and we've done some EU virtual fairs. And we also have our own platform where we do Sweden-specific virtual fairs for the Swedish universities. And then this is a smaller part, but we also do some sort of offline-online mix where we have a virtual recruitment element as part of an event or a larger campaign. So that might be a live stream or a chat group or a webinar. Yeah. So the next thing I want to talk about is why we chose to start doing virtual recruitment, because we also have this hybrid model where we do physical events and online stuff. But for us, we want to come across as a very modern, youthful country. So for us, it's just so on brand to be available online, to be very online. So we want to be in those kind of settings, which feels more modern, I guess. So that's very important for us. And then, of course, like I think both of you said before, the increased reach online is just so important. We are a team of 5 people representing all of the Swedish universities. We don't have offices abroad. So for us to participate in events locally is quite difficult. So yeah, we really appreciate being able to reach a lot of people online. And we also promote Swedish scholarship programs to very specific countries in the developing world where it's going to be hard for us to find events, but we can always reach those students online. It's great to be able to segment the market as well, to reach very targeted groups, or to promote a specific message where the audience might not be found in one physical location. Rather, they're spread out all over the world. And then, you know, you have to go with virtual recruitment. And like I said, we wanted to have this virtual part as kind of a complement to offline events or campaigns where we can kind of just get more bang for the buck. If we do a big campaign, we get an audience, and then we can retain that audience by having some kind of virtual contact with them after the actual campaign is over. And so the next slide is just some tips on how to make the most of virtual recruitment. I think it's important to pick the right format. You need to know, like Sebastian said before, what you're getting into. Or do you want a webinar where you can promote kind of a specific message? Or do you want a virtual fair where you can reach a big audience and sort of answer a lot of questions and, you know, have that kind of fair style interaction with the audience? It's also really important to market and promote your event, of course, to be able to reach the right people. We also had some experience of reusing material. So that might be making videos of our presentations. So we have a voiceover over our PPT, and we have it as a video file, and we share that with our collaborators so that they, in their own virtual fairs or webinars, they can use that, and we don't have to actually participate in all virtual recruitment events ourselves. Getting collaborators on board has been a big challenge for us, and it's been really important. So getting all the universities and our colleagues abroad to participate. They are not always as digitally friendly, or they're not always as keen on working online. So through kind of sharing best practice and through workshopping, we managed to get them on board, and now we have a really good team who are all helping each other in these virtual recruitment efforts. And then, of course, evaluating is really important to make sure that you really follow up the events you do to see if they were good, or if you want to tweak something, or maybe you want to try something else. Because there's just so many different, especially now, there's popping up so many different virtual recruitment events that you can choose from. You really need a way of evaluating them and seeing which ones were good and which you want to do again. And yeah, I think that is pretty much it for me. That's a quick one, but I'll be happy to answer questions later on. Thank you, guys.
Great, thank you. Adam, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
Finish screen sharing, can't we, Sebastian?
Yeah.
Quick question. How do you market to students to come to the events? Do you have a huge, Facebook page link? I mean, I know that's sort of increasingly less used, I hear, by younger students, but how do you actually market to the students to come to your own events?
Yeah, good question. We do have a Facebook page and other social media. So we do marketing there. We do ads as well on social media. And then we have a big database of our previous leads. And we might use that to kind of send out email invitations as well. But it's definitely a challenge, and you have to work hard to get the right audience.
And would you say there's particular world regions? I mean, you mentioned the beauty of being able to target countries where you might not ever travel to, but are there particular countries or world regions which you've had the best traction in?
I think we've had quite good experience. I think it's always easier in kind of Indian subcontinent, Southeast Asia. We've had some really good experience. We do a lot of work in China. It's harder work, but we've had really good results there as well. And then most recently, Latin America, we had a virtual fair where we had a huge Latin American, especially Peruvian audience, which is great because we have a lot of scholarships for that part of the world. But I think you need to know where you want to focus and try to market to that region.
Okay, thank you. And
thanks.
Omid.
Hi.
I'm sorry, some people are, I think I'm still quite quiet, but I'm speaking as loud as I can. So, Omid, tell us about your experience. I know you've used FPP events, but also having spoken to you, you have a very comprehensive approach to marketing and tracking outcomes on your marketing. So do you want to talk to us about what you do and why you do it the way you do it at Tilburg?
Definitely. I think first and most important part is if I would like to introduce Tilburg University briefly, www.tilburguniversity.edu, and then you can visit a 360 VR campus tour. And that's maybe the nicest starting point to explain that Tilburg University already tried over the last 4 years to introduce a blended M&R method, to use also digital ways to introduce our programs, but also our university to the target audience. And most important part in there, I think the COVID-19 crisis, although it was a very unfortunate situation, but it did help us to accelerate further digitalization in marketing and recruitment in a very short time. And I think one of the biggest events that we created was having a virtual open day with FPP. And there were mainly two key elements for Tilburg University in that regard, because I can talk for a long time about traditionally what we were doing, but I think the key elements in spring 2020, tailor-made and on-demand. We have tried to enhance the definition and maybe redefine interaction, because in the past, in the traditional way we are used to interact with people face-to-face, going to fairs, recruitment agencies, and I think many of our visitors today, participants, they know about those methods. And we had to try to understand what is this interaction, whether it's Generation Z and even from our point of view, if we are practicing what we preach with our marketing management master's degrees, we should be able at least to apply that by our own as well. And I think there we tried also to use methods and mainly experts in the market who could replicate this interaction in the new way. And I think that was one of the main reasons among the 11 suppliers that we have analyzed that FPP got closest to what our idea was about sharing the atmosphere of the university and the real part of interaction with our target audience. And because of that reason, we also talked closely that we really wanted the entire and exclusive open virtual fair for ourselves, for Tilburg University. And you just saw the presentation, which I really like to see it one more time. It's always nice to see all the virtual booth set up. But what we tried is to basically categorize our programs and the faculties in this way. So also there we try to further innovate what already was existing. And also what I said with tailor-made and on-demand, that's the main difference between HBO, Netflix, and the traditional TV. And that's what we try in marketing and recruitment, basically. One thing is also important, I think, if I look at future, I do agree, of course, on this hybrid model. But more important, again, taking those two key elements into consideration, for us is high flex hybrid even more important. So the flexibility of the consumers and to what sense that they could also understand that the, online should be accessible 24/7, basically. So indeed, I agree. Is it on Saturday or should it be 24/7 available? And this interaction as well, if you look at WhatsApp channel, for example, or any other point of connection. What I hear just from Adam, the activities in China, that's nice to know that, for example, in our case, we work already for a long time also through WeChat to understand the social online interaction in Chinese community. So we try also to tailor-make our approach in different markets. And the comprehensive approach behind this is through the traditional, maybe the traditional recruitment funnel. In the past, we were using the virtual events or the webinars lower in the funnel. Think about after consideration phase, so purchase service phase. But nowadays, we understand that the possibilities in awareness phase is also really larger. If you look at ads or any other retargeting campaigns, micro retargeting campaigns. So we go to that level to understand that our target audience is interested in perhaps information what is useful at that point of their orientation phase, and not randomly sending everything out, like how great we are, what top rankings we have. Maybe a sociology student has different type of information need than international business administration students. So there we try also to maybe change our type of message through data analysis and the follow-ups in virtual world. This is also something that I heard several times during the previous presentations. In the past, it was complementary that you could organize a virtual event after a physical event, or direct mail campaigns after visiting a fair abroad. What we tried is in this spring, basically, to have another virtual event as follow-up for a bigger virtual event beforehand. For example, one of the biggest Q&As we had, and I mean, we were really happy with teamwork in our team here, that so many people, after visiting the FPP event that was organized, and to be honest, we were surprised by number of visitors, which almost got close to the physical events here on campus, and it was really nice to see. The Q&As were also in the same way, and their questions changed because it was following up questions. So it really did what it should have been done. And that was the nice experience we had with these events.
And would you say, is there a difference in general between a virtual event visitor and a physical event visitor in your experience?
I think this is a challenge that we are facing now with the physical events. Different type of universities have different challenges. With Tilburg University, our biggest asset is a green campus. I had the opportunity to show you just very through the video how green the campus is. That's the biggest asset that we would like to share. And with online, that's maybe the lack of those kind of elements that you cannot truly let them feel how it is to be in such a green environment. And secondly, the parents, although they would love to sit behind the computer with their kids to consume the same information, but it feels a little bit awkward because that digital world or window towards this kind of information changes, because that's the privacy of the prospective students. So, but in normal campus events, the parents are just joining them. But here, this is their thing. It's their laptop. So he is consuming information. And we have also to find our way how to reach maybe the secondary target audience, in this case, parents or study counselors. Those are the little challenges. I can say this is not something we can solve. We will definitely be able to solve this, but we have to take this into mind that the online experience, it is a different experience than on campus or offline when we are abroad with the traditional fairs.
Great, thank you. I have a lot of questions myself, but we also have questions coming in from the floor, so I'm going to prioritize them.
Perfect.
The first one, Sebastian, is for you, I believe. The question is, how have you priced your virtual fairs for exhibitors, and how does this compare with what you are charging for in-person fairs?
Okay, Amy, that's actually a very good question, because sometimes there's a misconception that virtual fairs should be cheap because there's no chairs, there's no booths, that is actually, and Omid can support this, and also Adam, the most expensive part of any virtual event or physical event is promoting that to students. The advertising costs are the biggest ones. So those advertising costs are exactly the same from a virtual to a physical event. So that makes the same price. And also all the logistics, like the venue, the chairs, the tables, the booths, etc., is compensated by the work of at least a platform the way that we have. Building our platform, as I said, took us 2 years, a big investment, because it's a lot of people developing that. Of course, if you use Zoom, then there's no investment. And of course, there's as a fair is running, you have a lot of costs as well on server, etc. So that's why the price of a virtual event for us is about the same as of a one-day physical event, because it compensates. The logistics is compensated by the IT expenses, and the promotion is the biggest expense.
And one more thing I'd like to highlight, because what I was impressed when I saw the original demo was that you do allow people, don't you, in terms of data you deliver, to see how they compare with other peer institutions. Is that right?
Exactly. There's a magic percentage for students, and that is not seen by the students. That is seen on the exhibitor side. So depending on the information that the student supplies when they register with what each university offers, there's a matching percentage. So let's say you have a student looking for an English language course in Australia, will have a very low matching, for example, with Tilburg University, or almost 0%, because it's something totally different that is what is offered. So between what the student is seeking and what the university is offering, that way, as soon as the student comes to your booth, you can know how good that candidate is or not when they're in your booth.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
We have another question here, which is asked by Julian Van Simeis. He says, as a university, what are the tools in your platform to get in contact with students that are coming to the virtual fair? So I guess this is a question for Adam and for Omid. I mean, how do you make sure you engage well in the virtual platform?
Shall I go for it? At
Sure.
least from, of course, we have WebCare and WebDare colleagues who use different systems. In this case, WhatsApp is one of the channels. Facebook, although some people think it's traditional, but lots of people still use Facebook. And old-fashioned, maybe email is now one of the most old-fashioned ones, but they still approach us through that way. And Skype for Business. At our side is Skype for Business. At their side is just a Skype session. They get in touch with us, and Webinar Jam is also one of the other tools that we use beside FPP. And I think those are the ways that they interact with us.
Okay. Adam, anything to add?
No, I think that's pretty much it. Well, I mean, we make sure to promote our social media accounts and tell them that they can contact us through there after the event. And we do also add them to an email list as well. So yeah, pretty much the same.
Okay, I mean, I can see another question coming up here on the chat function, which is, are there any GDPR issues related to following up visitors? I'm presuming, Sebastian, no, when they sign up, they give their GDPR rights up.
Exactly. We operate the same for both in-person and virtual events. When a student registers, they need to accept a privacy policy. And at least what we do is, in that privacy policy, we really clarify to students that we will be sharing that data with each exhibitor they visit at a fair. So that way, that data is shared by that. So there's fully compliant with GDPR.
Okay, thanks. A question here from one of our panelists, Cuore. He would like to know, what's been your experience in Africa, particularly Nigeria? Have you done virtual fairs? And do you get the right sort of students to participate?
Yeah, we have at least, but would like to target Adam or Omid.
No.
Yeah, I think we have participated in some. Sorry, what's that?
I guess the question could relate to any event. How do you make sure you get the right qualified students and not time wasters? I mean, I should flag up our poll at this point, actually. So in our poll, two of the biggest issues, according to the delegates here, are managing the volume of queries without clarity on real intent and also having a low volume of inquiries. So how do you try and mitigate against that?
I'll take that one, Amy. I mean, at least what we do, and that's why I said when I was talking about the tips, it's very important to know when you're choosing any provider, it's important to know what's the student journey. What's the student website? Go to that website, analyze it, read it. Just double check if in that website is full of the word scholarships, because maybe that will not engage the right audience, depending on the kind of institution you are. Just check how is the message to students. And number two, check what is the registration process for the student. We screen students for both physical events and for virtual events. So we screen 2 times. Number one, on which kind of promotion we do, because as Adam said, when you do online, you can really segment very well the audience you want to reach. And number two, we screen a second time by the questions we ask in the registration form. So on the registration form, we had very specific questions, and there's an algorithm that basically sends the invitation or not to students after they complete the registration. So if they qualify, they get the invitation and they log in. If they don't qualify, we just leave those students saying that their registration is being analyzed, and basically they don't get a confirmation to join the event. If they go to the event, they can join, but we don't send them reminders. We don't work on them to actually join.
If I may add something to that, Amy, we also do, some events are exclusively open only if you meet certain prerequisites. In this case, if you have visited our open day, then you are welcome in our drop-by days to visit the campus. So we have tried to, and usually they say, don't say the obvious, but in this case, you have to say the obvious. So if your open days are meant for orientation phase in the recruitment funnel, let the student know that this is purely for broad orientation phase of the student. If you have done your drop-by days, tell them that they must be informed about the possibilities in the university. So the type of questions are also being more narrowing down towards the decision-making process. And this is something you can be very honest in your landing pages, in the direct mails after your events. I think this is a very simple thing to do by analyzing your touch points, see from organization point of view, at least, which touch point should help the prospective students throughout which part of the customer journey chapters, and how it is perceived by your customer. You can double check that by surveys, by contacting them by phone to see whether that orientation phase helped them in that part of their journey. And do not solve everything at the same time. So the customer journey is a long time. In our case, if you look at international schools, it starts from grade 9 until they graduate, maybe from their master's. So it's a long nurturing time. So try to look at these tangible and intangible touch points and optimize them chapter by chapter, not everything at one time. That's impossible. And I think that would be first the inventory and later on optimization chapter by chapter.
Great, thank you. I'm going to come to a question now from Brenda McMahon. Here we are. do you think face-to-face fairs are now a thing of the past, or do they still have an important place in the future? And I want to come to you, Omid, first, because I know you have amazing granular data on which marketing campaigns really deliver results. And I know you track that through over a long period.
Yeah.
I mean, based on your experience and your data, do you think you will do less face-to-face fairs in the future?
We already do. I mean, if I look at the past exactly 9 years, we do less face-to-face fairs. But I think this is a question depending on your focus markets, because not every market responds the same way to all your touch points. One size fits all doesn't work here. So I think you should really focus on those markets that you are focusing on to see how the consumers are still interested in different types. That's the reason why, for example, recruitment agents in our case are not used in every market, but in certain markets where parents trust and rely on authorities and experts in those areas, and less online methods, for example. But definitely, I think if you look at the coming years, of course, this will drop day by day and in several markets, because all these markets and approaches are evolving as well. So I think that will happen for sure, but only when and in which market, that's the question that you have to understand by analyzing the consumer behavior in different target markets.
Right, which is what you do well with data.
Definitely, yeah, at least we try to.
Ilaria, over to you. I mean, two things really. Do you have tips for people watching who maybe haven't attended an event? I mean, I can have a look at the polls. So yeah, about 30% of the people here today who voted haven't attended a virtual event. Would you have tips on how to make the most out of the events you attend and convert the leads?
So I would say, as both Omid and Sebastian said, I think it's a matter not just of training the students. For people who have less experience, for example, like us, I would say we also need to be trained. We also need to change and to innovate. So compare different providers, understand. So following Sebastian's tips, I think you get an idea of what you need to look for. Prepare for the fair. It is, of course, it's replicating features of an offline fair. But of course, the student has many more opportunities. I think for the student, there's so many more ways for them to compare information, and you need to be ready to interact in a different way, although you're talking face-to-face. Face-to-face, they cannot just say, okay, not interested, I walk by. It's difficult. Online, of course, they can. So you need to be way more engaging. So that, I think, would be my tip.
And do you try and limit the time? So, I mean, I'm imagining at a virtual event, speaking on a video one-to-one, all day is quite tiring.
Yeah.
You try and limit how long you spend with each student?
It's very complicated. Omid, I think, pointed out something very intelligent and smart. Every market is absolutely different. It depends what kind of event you're running. If it's general orientation, of course, you cannot spend 4 hours, but you could definitely redirect very interesting student to a different private channel afterwards, because this also nurtures the student and makes it feel special, because ultimately they want a special connection with the university. So I think there are very simple yet brilliant ways to manage that kind of relation, because yes, resources are limited.
And just your perspective on whether face-to-face will be a thing of the past. In some countries, do you think you won't need to in the future?
I think as well, Omid pointed out something very intelligent, which is the funnel is being reconstructed somehow. What we used to do at a target, at a certain moment of the funnel, is moving up, and vice versa. So if face-to-face before was meant, for us at least, as general orientation, because abroad we were not that known, we needed to be there, and we needed to be seen, we needed to talk to a lot of people to go down the funnel. Now I think we're gonna actually switch this completely over. We're gonna be there face-to-face to people who have already known us, and we need to establish that final step, that final click for them actually to come to us.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. Let's see if we've got time for one more question. Well, a very easy one here. Can students go back to the virtual fair platform to access the event once it has ended? So to access videos, photos, general information once the virtual live event is over? Sebastian,
at least in ours, no, they cannot go back to the actual platform. They can go back to their management area, where we provide to students basically the same information we provide to exhibitors. We provide to students all the information they have marked as favorite, so the brochures, the videos, etc., and also the conversations they had with each exhibitor. And the same, the exhibitors get, of course, all the information from the students. They visited their booth, and they get that. So not at the actual fair, but yes, to whatever they say. So they keep like their virtual backpack, and they can go back to that.
A virtual backpack, I like that. Another question just from me. I mean, can you give us any indication of numbers of how many students you have attending your events? I mean, what's the biggest event you've hosted?
The biggest event was recently now in Latin America on June 24th. That event got about 6,000 students. We also hosted events for the Canadian government with about 6,000 students. The one that I was showing the platform for you was the one we hosted in June the 10th for India, and that was 3,500 students with about 70 universities. I don't recall the numbers exactly, but the events are becoming larger and larger, with, of course, being the only option. Previously, I would say when we started with events in 2017, 18, etc., the average would be about 40, 50 exhibitors max. But of course, now many more institutions are using them. And one thing that, of course, we are very pleased, as Omid said, they thought about our platform, because that was something we were not doing. We built our platform for our own events, not to be rented to third parties. But when they were researching their platform, they came back to us because they had joined an event with us and say, hey, do you rent it? And we were like, oh, no. Well, now we do rent our platform for open days, and actually Tilburg University was our guinea pig in that, for an event we hosted in May, and 16th of May.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. I mean, I think we're pretty much done on time. I'm just going to ask you guys, and thanks, Adam. I won't bring him back in now because we're just closing, but just some final points from you, Omid and Ilaria, about sort of the future of recruitment, international student recruitment, and student flows, given travel bans, etc. What are you anticipating the next academic year to look like?
Who would like to start?
An ominous silence, I would say.
I think we need another 30 minutes for that.
But are you feeling hopeful, Ilaria? You had said you had lots of applications and interest.
Yes, so for September 2020 intake, we were lucky enough, and I think we were skillful enough in order to maintain what we had worked through the whole year. I think it's going to be a very interesting semester. Actually, we're not scared by it, but we're very interested by the challenge, because it opens up opportunities and it brings up change. And I think, as Omid said before, I've truly agreed with what he said. These accelerated processes that were needed absolutely from our side. So I'm actually taking the place in the unfortunate events that happened.
Omid, what about you? Are you feeling positive about the future?
Definitely. I mean, if I wouldn't do that, I wouldn't be a marketeer. So I'm always optimistic about what is to come. But I think the most important advice that I have for all our colleagues, yesterday I had a meeting with 13 Dutch universities also in this regard, like what do we expect from the coming semester? Apart from the fact whether the international students and international mobility within the constraints that we are facing at this moment, it will enable us to receive all these students. I think it's important to, and I love that question about how much time do you spend. I think we cannot deal with volumes anymore as volumes. Like that was what we did 10 years ago. Now you will have to take the time for these people because they are investing through their choice for education, and this is an investment in their future. So we will have to spend time back in their choice. So in that way, I would like to ask everyone, this professionalization, maybe evolution towards what type of videos do you present, the digital backpacks, you have to take time for this and you have to challenge yourself and not seeing it as extra workload, this is the evolution of marketing, and we will have to be part of it. Otherwise, we end up like Kodak, most of us. So I think we will have to anticipate in this and see it as a great challenge that we were not enabled because of all these traditional bureaucratic ways. Today, it's a great gift that they allow us to experiment with these new methods. So let's use time for this to create new ways and join this beautiful move. So I see it, to be honest, as a great opportunity, but also to understand Generation Z much better, who are already using these methods. So in my opinion, even if we see a drop in number of international students, this shouldn't be a way to worry too much about future. This is a lesson learned, fine, we all have to deal with it, but what do we do in maybe from January 2021 onwards? But I see it as a positive move, to be honest.
Yeah, and there's some people in the chat agreeing with you. So much more focused, much more effective, much more virtual.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, Adam, I felt sorry for you not bringing you back.
That's very nice of you.
Would you like to add anything?
Sure. No, I agree with what I just heard. It's a mixed bag for us. We're a little bit worried, of course, about big disturbances in the flows of student mobility and the economy of a lot of our future students. But in terms of marketing and recruitment, I think it's a very exciting time, and there's going to be a lot more kind of creative digital stuff happening, a lot of new, like exploring new ways of reaching out to students. So that's exciting for sure.
Great. Let's leave it on that note. It's an exciting, if unknown, future. Thank you so much, Sebastian, Omid, Adam, for joining.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
We'll see you for the next Pi webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining.